Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. How are you on this beautiful Sunday? So today, as you can tell by the title, we are going to be doing a quick little plan with me in my common planner for the week of June the 12th all the way up to the 18th. And it's going to be a very special episode because I'm going to leave some segments of this video in normal time because I wanted to actually answer some of your questions. I do have a couple of questions that you guys have asked me. I asked you both on Instagram as well as on the YouTube community tab, which, by the way, like if you never checked the YouTube community tab, you absolutely should. If you don't follow me already on Instagram, I'll just leave the handle right on the screen because I usually give you guys like different prompts, or I give you guys the opportunity to vote and things like that. And this time I asked you to ask me anything you want, and of course you didn't disappoint. So we're going to be kind of answering those questions. And if you're new here and this is the first time that we're meeting, well, hello, my name is Meshi. I talk a couple of times a week on this channel, all the good things, all the planners, all the stationery, all the journaling. If that's your jam, you should definitely hang out. Okay, that's it for the intro. Let's just kind of get started. And no, I do not have much of a plan as far as what we're going to be doing today. So for now, I just thought I would just create at least my main outline, and then we'll kind of get things going. All right, friends, so as we're getting started, obviously I'm just setting up like the outline, the parameters, the bare bone basics. And first of all, this actually helps me sometimes when my mind just feels a little tired. I just don't really want to make any decisions around. So if I'm not sure what type of colors I would like to use, what my color scheme is, or what type of washi tape or highlighter I want to kind of accent my page with, sometimes all of those little design details really take up a lot of mental space for me. And honestly, a lot of times I actually just kind of find it easier to just write out the bare bone basics within my planning setup and then add all of the decoration wherever I kind of see fit. Generally, I don't do that, but I kind of like to create that system whenever my mind just feels tired. You probably had those weeks too where you just don't have the mental capacity to kind of put together, compositions and things like that. And the reason why I mentioned this and the reason why I wanted to kind of go into detail of this is because the very first question that I was asked is, how do I stay consistent? How do I have a planning system where I'm kind of coming back to it week after week, day after day, and keeping things consistent? I tried to find the person that was asking me this question originally, so I apologize. Instagram has gotten me completely lost. But let's talk about this very, very common question, actually, because I've seen a lot of planners out there that tend to struggle with this idea of consistency, or struggle with this idea of essentially you have to do something every single day. So my answer to all of this is I actually don't use my planner I don't use all of my planners every single day all the time. And so I think that already gives me enough freedom to not feel locked into the whatever system I have chosen at the beginning of the year. The other thing that I should mention is that at different times I use a different planner system, which will partially actually answer the second question that's going to be coming up a little bit later. But I wanted to kind of mention that here, for me, it becomes very easy to stay somewhat consistent because I generally just need a place where I can just kind of do a little bit of a brain dump. And once it's out on paper, and it generally actually tends to be my go-to tends to be my VDS planner, the 6-ring planner, which I haven't really featured on this channel as much as I thought I would have. But honestly, it's just such a functional planner, and my weekly layout looks really consistent from week to week. So therefore, I generally tend to not really share it on this channel because to me, it's just kind of boring to just keep showing you the same weekly layout. But for me, as far as me using it as a planner, it becomes very, very predictable. It becomes very almost like a mindless activity, because then of course I will be filling it out, and it automatically has that space for me where I no longer feel like my Monday morning will be, starting out with a sense of anxiety, like I'm somehow missing, an outlet where I can kind of write things down. Now, when I do get really busy though, and I think that you will kind of see this here in my planning session, when I get really busy or I'm just mentally really tired, I absolutely stick to the basics. And I think that that has actually changed from how I used to plan in the past, because in the past I would be really rigid about having a planner and then always making sure that everything is updated and always making sure that everything has like a pretty spread. And so it was just a lot of pressure that I personally placed on myself on what I need to actually keep track of. When in reality, when you break it down as to when your appointments are happening, what are some of your reminders, what are some of the things that you absolutely need to keep track of, then it doesn't become like such a strenuous chore. So all I'm going to add about this is basically, if you're finding that within your planner system, because keep in mind that planning and journaling is such a personal practice, that practice actually needs to meet your needs exactly where you're at. And so that means that system also needs to be very flexible, which also means that it needs to move and mold with you and with your current lifestyle. And I think what happens a lot, and what used to happen to me quite often, is that I would watch other creators and I would kind of look at the way that they are updating their journals or the way that they are updating their weekly spreads. And instead of using that as a form of inspiration, I would also use it as a form of a template. So therefore, I would try to sort of mimic that style, mimic someone else's style, even though it didn't actually fit into my own. And I remember doing this mainly when I actually had a bullet journal, and it would just kind of get me into these traps all the time because I would feel like I'm still not doing it correctly. And so the reason why I wanted to mention this is because if you're feeling this way, then it could be, if you're finding that you have a really difficult time keeping things consistent, it could just be that maybe we're putting too much pressure on ourselves to kind of maintain too many things. And so maybe it's time to kind of scale it back a little bit. I know there are certain systems that I just simply don't have the bandwidth to update, and it's not really serving me. So because of that, I don't feel the loyalty or the obligation for me to constantly feel like I have to constantly show up to it. So hopefully that answers your question, and thank you for asking. In other news, as you're seeing, literally this is happening in real time. I still keep the bottom section here fairly consistent with the cleaning schedule, with the meals, anything and everything that is sort of extra. I try not to overload my weekly layouts. I would much rather just kind of use it as more for time blocking and as a reminder for like workouts and things like that. But obviously the details of the actual week more go into my daily rather than in my weekly. I find that this is sort of where it becomes really obvious to me that if I really wanted to keep track of every single little thing that is happening on each day on this layout, I would quickly run out of space. So if you're sort of looking at, or you're reevaluating your weekly and your layout currently within your planner, and you're kind of wondering, should you switch over to the Hobonichi Cousin, or should you stay with the common planner, there's definitely something to keep in mind of how you're planning on using it. And it's not to say that there isn't enough space here, but it's to say that I tend to not overload my weekly pages simply for that reason, because I want to make sure that it's actually functional and that I can kind of have a good overview of everything that's happening. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things here while I have you. Basically, this is like the meat of the actual planning. So if you're kind of like, okay, how long does it actually take to plan out the week? This is how long it takes. It's about 10 to 15 minutes. And that's me actually taking my time and writing things out. Technically, you can be done here. So when we're like adding all the extra details or highlighting things, those are all just extra. So whenever you're like short on time, you can kind of just stop here. Okay, let's address question number 2. This one is coming from Living with Lacey. First of all, thank you so much for asking your questions. She asked, what planner system do you find yourself reaching for often and why? Honestly, I'm generally swinging back and forth between my common planner and my Hobonichi weeks. Hobonichi weeks tend to come with me whenever I go to work, but it's also the one little system that I kind of bring with me whenever I want to make quick notes. I just find that like the size and the accessibility and the weekly layout, it just works really, really well for me. Extra notes and things like that tend to go into my common planner, mainly because I just have that freedom of if I want to journal, I can. If I want to kind of brainstorm my ideas, I have that space for it. And if I'm just feeling anxious, or if I'm feeling like I really don't have the bandwidth to kind of make everything look aesthetically pleasing, then I tend to go for my 6-ring bound planner in my VDS planner, because everything within that system is already laid out for me. I tend to not use that for literally anything else other than just kind of writing out my to-do list. But for that reason, it's great. But my day-to-day kind of like actual planner system tends to be my common planner. So because I kind of move around and I need multiple outlets for multiple purposes, I find that the Hobonichi weeks tends to be the one that I kind of reach for often for something when it's like on the go, and it tends to be in my bag pretty much all the time. But as for my day-to-day planning, it's usually my common planner that you're seeing me planning right now. And it's mainly my daily pages that I tend to gravitate towards whenever I want something longer format or I kind of want to reference something back. Now, will this change going into the new year? I am not entirely sure. There's some things that I love about the common planner, but then there's something very comforting about the Hobonichi system that I'm not sure that the common planner has reached that level of a privilege and prestige just yet, so to say. So I also think that your style and the way that you plan changes and evolves with you, because my needs, and especially within my business, my needs are constantly changing. And whenever I'm finding myself that I'm sort of starving for a certain outlet, and if I need to have extra systems in place just to kind of accommodate that, then I already know that the planning system that I put in place is no longer suitable for kind of what I set out to do. So me knowing this about myself and me giving myself that permission to also change my mind, I think is it's like a really big element when it comes to having a really good flexible planning system. So thank you so much for asking the question. I really appreciate it, because I don't think that it's talked about enough. I don't think that we talk about enough of the mistakes that we make, so to say, quote unquote mistakes. I don't think that we address enough when we buy certain things and we have a hope for it to kind of work out, of why certain things didn't work out for us, and also why we're shifting planner systems. Sometimes it's very much just more about, oh, there's a new thing that came out and therefore we should switch our entire system. But I think that there's something to be said about honoring how our mind works, what our lifestyle looks like, and what makes most functional sense for us that will bring us a sense of, we call this planner peace, but if you actually ask me, I would call that an inner mental peace rather than it's a planner piece. So, giving yourself the permission to kind of change your mind and adjust accordingly to whatever your lifestyle is, I think it's invaluable when it comes to having a successful system in place. In other news, I should mention that I had no idea that I still had the sticker sheet. I'm going to do my absolute best to link every single product that I'm using here in the description, but let me just walk you through it. So the little sticker that I'm using right now, this one is from Yohand Studio. If you haven't seen the full haul, I will just put it right into the cart so you can check that out. The other like clear sticker set, I believe this is from Swatelier, and it basically includes a bunch of like jam, churros, a couple of plants, which I'm not sure how that kind of fits in. It's sort of like a mismatch of pretty much everything. It's super cute. It's a very thick kind of clear sticker material. I really like it. I've had it for eons and it's still like one of my go-tos. And then the last one that I was using here, which was basically, it's sort of like a PET tape. You can kind of see me pulling this out. This one is from Emily Journal. And this was actually one of like the sets that I picked up from my last haul. Again, if you haven't seen it, I believe I actually posted more of the full haul on my Instagram. Okay, you guys, I think this is the finished look. I don't have like all the appointments entered in, but I have most of them. Oh, let me get rid of that. So let me know what you guys think. And also, if you enjoyed this video, you can give it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe if you haven't had a chance yet already. And just keep planning, keep journaling, keep doing all the things that you love. And I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Bye.